Well, we're coming into the studio today to go to work. We have Top Gun pilot Ed Rush and my son, who always looks like he came out of Special Forces training, Carl. Now, my focus today is on this whole expedition that Trump did with bombing in Iran. I want to talk to the Top Gun pilot on how does that work and how does that actually happen. And, you know, the number one question people have for him is, how do people go to the bathroom on the plane? I can't believe that's the number one question he gets asked. Anyway, you know, I feel great this week. I actually did my own matrix last week. You know, I mentioned about this stem cell matrix thing. There is something really important about the impact of that technology on health, regenerative wellness, the ability that it has proactively to go into, like if you're healthy, then it really just goes to work in different ways that I think are maintenance oriented, that have an effect on it. Cognitive clarity, brain fog, all that kind of stuff that gets people. But I did a show last week where we had so many testimonies of people that were actually recovering from different really degenerating conditions in their body. I'm a big proponent of them. I'm going to tell you again, you want to call and find out some information, call 1-800-361-2270, or just go to level10matrix.com. Level10matrix.com and get the information on it. There's a book, Stem Cells Made Simple. I really recommend you get that because it's these fighter pilots, this is what made me think about it today for this promo, is that these fighter pilots, they do like 36, 42 hours round trip. They have to be in perfect condition to deliver the goods, and so do you. Level10matrix.com. Check it out and find out why people are finding this technology is transforming their lives. Let's get into today's show. All right, so now we got our friend Ed Rush, who is former Top Gun pilot and trainer. And so certainly I'm interested in getting some of that. And my son Carl is interested too today. He's in the studio. I wanted to ask you some questions, but let's bring Ed in. Ed, good to see you there.
Lance and Carl, man, I got the whole gang here. What's up, man? Good to see you guys.
And you look clear. I know my monitor has you looking like the rose between two thorns. We all look washed out, but I'm going to just assume that's a technical illusion. But let me ask you.
I think this is just real life. All
right.
Loud and clear, Ed.
Smarty pants. Let's see how much you know. So anyway, so these pilots, real quick, before we go, and this is a random conversation here. Those pilots, I'm reading today, they could have 2 on a B-2, possibly 3, but they had to fly for 2 days straight. That means they had to sleep while they were on the. Somebody had to sleep. How does that work up there? You're staying awake and I'm sleeping. I'm awake, you're sleeping, or you think they had a third pilot in there, or what?
So it's crazy. So we dropped 14 bombs on these 2 nuclear enrichment sites. Flew 37 hours, massive strike, tons of airplanes, cruise missiles, submarines, everything. And the number one question I get, Lance, literally the number one question I'm getting all week is, how do these guys go to the bathroom? That was like the number one question.
That's terrible. I know. But you know what? They have a microwave. They got a small refrigerator and a bathroom. I mean, I checked it out. Isn't that?
It's very comfortable. They've got a little place to sleep. They do rotate crews. You can't legally fly 37 hours. It's not even like allowed. So there's crew rest requirements, very strict on how they go about doing that. But yeah, they take off. It's unbelievable. Think about this for a second. We have airplanes that took off out of Missouri and dropped bombs in Iran, and we're home in Missouri 37 hours later. I can just imagine. Can you imagine if we had an enemy that could take off into our airspace uncontested, drop bombs, and fly home? It's crazy to think about how dominant our air forces are. So and I say air forces and not Air Force because I was a Marine that flew, so air forces. But yeah, it's crazy.
So when the president says, he's predictably bragging all the time, but he goes, no other military in the world could do what we did. Is that true, that no other military could do consecutive air? I mean, but because they had to be refueled in the air, which in itself is if you think about it, it's almost like a Cirque du Soleil high wire act. You got to get 2 vehicles flying at hundreds of miles an hour to line up, not crash, hook up exactly, fuel up with combustible stuff, and then disconnect and take off. It's a real, I mean, that's no small feat, is it?
I mean, the amount of Wright brothers level miracles that you needed to accomplish. So first of all, you need an airplane that's low observable like the B-2. They're carrying two 30,000-pound bombs. To put that into context, an empty F-18, the plane I flew, was 30,000 pounds. They're dropping two F-18s on a bunker. That's how big those things are. Refueling 5 times along the way. They're meeting up with other aircraft with coordinated missiles, literally coming from submarines and destroyers that are in the Gulf. The precision and the timing and the step-by-step planning. We used to plan these when I was in the Marines. I was called a mission planner. Doing missions like this, it would take days, literally 48, 72 hours to work your way to all the coordination on something like this. And the fact that we do it so safely, well, safely for us, I should say, the fact that we do it so safely is a testament to our armed forces. I'll just say this: our air forces are the best in the world by far, hands down. Nobody flies against us. Iran didn't take off a single airplane. They could have. They would have died if they did. They probably would have died before they would have known they were going to die. That's how good we are. I think the only country that really stands up to us, just in terms of numbers and potentially training, is China. I still don't think they're there quite yet, but with a drone war, things are changing fairly quickly on the battlefield. So for now, we're the top of the heap.
Well, Carl, I'm going to let you have a freebie right there because my mind is reeling with questions now about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a delight to see you. I do have some questions about not just the legality, but the preparation that goes into this type of thing. How long was this type of preparation actually in the works before we saw the fruits of their labor?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two parts to that. Good question, Carl. So there's the preparation and then there's the operational security. This mission came off without any leaks, which is amazing. Just so you know, that's impossible. For every single person that knows, you have to understand the high level brass, certainly the high level civilian folks work at the Pentagon. They all have networks in the media that they're going to text and say, hey, just so you know, in like 3 days, they all do that. And the fact that this was so tightly controlled tells you that only a few people knew. I would say outside of the National Security Council and the planners in the Air Force, basically probably no one else knew. And then once they had the package and the targets, they start literally the planners begin to work backwards from the target, including other aircraft. And what's even more complicated is because you're flying from Missouri across. Typically, we fly very arcing great circle routes that gets you there actually faster when you fly over Greenland, over Iceland. Remember, every country we fly over, we have to have permission to fly over. So there's certain countries that we just have to avoid, like that we just can't go through. So sometimes you have to weave your way through countries. I flew from Japan all the way to Thailand once, one straight flight, 9 hours. Don't even ask me about the bathroom part of that flight, by the way.
I won't.
9 hours, but we actually had to fly all the way down around China and Vietnam because we couldn't fly over their airspace. So that's typical for flights like this too. Unbelievably complicated. The fact that we can do it with such precision just speaks to the tenor and the quality of our crews.
Definitely.
What's going through the pilot now? The pilots have to land these bunker busting bombs. I understand. Have you heard about this? That they went through an air shaft, like right out of Mission Impossible, the movie, where they figured out there was an air shaft, and then true to the movie, they have a ventilation shaft that which bypasses the concrete basically to get the gases and stuff out. And I understand they targeted that. Give us some specifics that you picked up on as a fighter pilot that the average TV watcher might not know.
Yeah, it's good. For all the time that we make fun of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, they do create some pretty good weapons. And I'll just say the air crews do a great job. When it comes down to the actual gunnery, the weapon does all the work. In fact, mostly the pilot's job is to fly into what's called a basket. They're at mid 30,000 feet, way up high. They're flying straight and level. They fly into a general area. I'm talking miles wide. They get into that area and they push what we call a pickle switch to let the bomb go. At this point, the bomb is called a GBU 57. That's a guided bomb unit 57. It is a GPS guided weapon, accurate to about 1 meter. To put that in the context, they're dropping it about 10 miles away. It's going to fly through the air. It has maneuvering fins. It doesn't have thrust, just fins. It uses gravity to accelerate, and then it does its turn. The pilots pre-flight will code that weapon with a latitude, longitude, and elevation, an angle of attack, and an angle of entry. So there's 5 separate mission parameters that go into that. So, for example, if you have a elevation, a duct like from Star Wars or from Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, if you have a duct like that, the mission planners might say, okay, here's a latitude, here's a longitude. here's the elevation, and I want the weapon to go in at 92 degrees, in this direction and straight down into this direction. And once the weapon penetrates, most weapons, when they hit the ground, they detonate immediately. These weapons, they wait a long time in weapon land, which is a few milliseconds, but it's a long, long time. Typically what happens is there's an initial bomb that explodes in the front of the weapon that creates room for the second detonation that will come typically after that. It can go far and deep into the ground. I don't know, Lance, by the way, if it made it all the way down to where those enrichment centers were. Intelligence, I heard, said they were 800 feet down. There's no weapon that can get down that far. The idea in this is to suppress or neutralize it. In other words, to render it completely incapable of them using it. And my guess is that that's exactly what happened.
Well, but yeah, they if it was 600, I thought it was maybe like 300 feet down. If it was that far down, but they dropped how many? They had, I think it was like 12 total. And they used those missiles from the submarines to take out 2 above ground structures. But I mean, how many? Do you know how many it was? How many?
14.
14?
Yeah, 14 bombs. They dropped 14 bombs. Interestingly, Iran shot back 14 missiles. It was the exact same number. The number of cruise missiles that were shot. So this package, so the cruise missiles will start hitting ground targets. The package that comes in does 2 things called SEAD, suppression of enemy air defense, and DEAD, which is destruction of enemy air defense. What that means is if the enemy air defenses turn on, which they apparently they didn't, or as far as I understand, they didn't. The moment they turn on, we start shooting at radars. We start shooting at comm centers. So not an airplane took to the sky. There was no single defense at all from their air defenses, which should tell you something about the readiness of their military. Those GBU-57s dropped on the target. We dropped 14 into 6 separate holes, as far as I understand. All those other cruise missiles are typically used to soften up the target or take out other above ground structures or communication nodes. Very lethal, very effective. I can understand why Iran wanted a ceasefire. And frankly, I can understand why the president's so upset this morning that both sides didn't comply with that.
Well, they were complying, but they were complying almost like adolescents. Like, oh, we have to stop in 12 hours. Let's drop everything we've got in the first hour. It's like, and he's like pulling he's going, I'm trying to de-escalate. You understand what that word means? It doesn't mean get it all out of your system in a final flurry. So he's frustrated. And you know, if he was dropping indiscreet F-bombs on his way to the helicopter, imagine what he was saying to Netanyahu when he got him one-on-one. I guarantee it. He peeled the paint off the walls, because it's like, everything I've done, I'm not going to blah, 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 whatever he says. But Netanyahu got the word out and said, turn those fighters back. The last thing I want Washington to hear is there was another strike done after he rebuked me.
Yeah, right on. And, it's interesting. It's a wonderful spiritual nuance too, right? We support Israel, but that doesn't mean everything they do is the right thing, right? So like there's some times when Israel makes a bad decision. There's some kings and queens in the Old Testament that made some really bad decisions that were rebuked by prophetic people and God himself. So I think, generally speaking, we support Israel. We love Israel as a country. We bless them, but not every decision that the Israeli leadership makes is the right decision. And I think they should have just pulled back. Let's see what we can do in terms of catalyzing a movement here. And at the very least, get some concessions back from Iran and hopefully allow them to never build a nuclear weapon ever again. Ideally, I'd love to see someone else in charge of that country. I think, frankly, God would too.
Well, that's the funny thing about the president. I mean, he's hinting at regime, make Iran great again. They need a new regime. Then he gets this feedback. They have very fast polling data in Washington, and he looks at it, and it's like everyone's freaking out. It sounds like you're going to get in there, you're going to go in there with boots on the ground. No. If they're dysfunctional, all I care about is they don't have nukes. Oh boy, I can't believe we're out of time. We got a new format now. I don't know if you like it or not, but we're going to have to do the second part of my interview tomorrow with Ed. We're trying to make it chunkier and bite-sized and easier for people on the go. So don't miss tomorrow, because tomorrow we get into some really juicy subject matter with our guest, Ed Rush. See you then. What if you could live younger and stronger for longer? Is it possible to reactivate your body's internal repair system the way God designed it? Are you or someone you love struggling with body degeneration and in search of some kind of an effective solution? At Level 10 Matrix, we believe that the power that created you can heal you, and that healing and regeneration are already encoded right inside your DNA. And whether it's due to injury or illness or aches or chronic pain or lack of energy, mental or physical decline, or the brain fog that seems to come with the aging process itself. If you want to revitalize your life now, then call 1-800-361-2270 or go to level10matrix.com now to claim your complimentary ebook and to schedule your complimentary no obligation, no pressure consultation. Remember, looking and feeling younger never gets old. So if you want to revitalize your life now, then call 1-800-361-2270 today.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped